welcome to Strings to Your Bow. I'm Chloe Weatherhead, your host and the founder of Andy Armour Business Assistants. This is the podcast where we dive into personal journeys of our guests, uncovering how their unique experiences have shaped the skills or superpowers that fuel their business success. This week, I'm thrilled to be joined by Michael Pollington. Michael wears many hats. He's the Chief of Trustees for Anglian Community Trust, works with a hospice in Bury St Edmunds, and provides business consultancy with a focus on corporate governance and data protection. Thanks for joining me, Michael. Let's get started. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and perhaps some key personal experiences that have got you to where you are today?
Hi, it's good to be here. Thank you for inviting me. It's lovely. So, as mentioned, I wear many hats. So I was in the NHS for 20 years, which was an interesting experience. It's lots and lots of work, lots of stick beating, and just trying to get projects achieved and everything like that. And then eventually I moved on to working for a hospice in Bury St Edmunds, St Nicholas, which has got some challenges as well. But also on top of that, as you say, Anglian Community Trust. So I'm the Chair of Trustees for them, which is a local charity that aims to give out small amounts of money to help with things like mental health projects. It could be a local social project, anything like that, really. So I also do some business consultancy as well that I've done in the past to do with corporate governance and things like that. And as everybody has, you've collected jobs as you go along the way, everything from project management to change management, working on the national programme for IT, leading IT programs, you name it, it's endless. So I won't go into every single thing that exists. But I think along the way, actually what's got me to where I am now, I think the world of working changed for me actually was due to somebody saw me and thought, I think he could do more. So actually I had somebody who saw what I was doing in the NHS at the time and thought, why was I doing just that? I think he could do a lot more. He said, do I fancy doing a secondment with him? He almost took me under his wing to a certain extent. Next thing I know, I'm doing training courses left, right, and centre all over the place. It was like a whirlwind for about 2 years of training courses. And by the time I got to the end of that 2 years of the training courses, I was leading on projects. I'd only been in the NHS probably by this point 6 years, I would say.
Yeah.
I'm pretty new to the world of NHS in the big scheme of things, and I found that because he'd give me such a varied, I suppose, a very look at the NHS and what's needed in the NHS, it meant that I basically got my fingers into lots of pies.
Yeah.
Whereas other people who also worked for me previously were still doing that same job.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, and would still be in the same place. So I definitely think sometimes if there is somebody that sees that you've got a little bit extra that they can give, it helps you a lot.
Yeah. And do you think, because I mean, I mentioned at the start there you're working with a couple of charities and it feels to me that you like variety in what you do. Do you think you naturally almost chase that variety and hunt down different aspects? Some people very much like to stay in their lane, don't they? Whereas other people just are constantly looking for different things to do to bring those differences and that variety to their daily life. Do you think you're the second type of person?
My brain doesn't stop, unfortunately. Even of an evening at night, it's constantly going. So I think it's more than anything because of what I do. Even if I am doing a particular role and I've got a job role that's there, it doesn't I can't see things in the tunnel. There's always things from different places. Does it fit with different teams? How does it fit with different teams? If somebody said previously when I managed IT, we're going to be doing this project and we're rolling out A, then my first question would be, do we need it? So because as with everything, if you give IT a project to do and you say lead it please IT, wow, it'll be an amazing bit of equipment you've got. Doesn't matter if you need it or not, we've got it now. So
Yeah.
for me, it's always a case of, do we need it, and going backwards a bit to going, okay, so where did all this start? What was actually, do the nurses need to be using it? Actually, do finance need this new bit of equipment? Is it going to actually benefit them? Sometimes you've got that something will be, we're going to change this process. Why are you going to change it? Well, because we really want to do it like we've always done it before, but the new system doesn't do that. It's like,
Yeah.
but the whole point of the new system is to change it. So I definitely have struggle with keeping in one lane.
Yeah.
So we're going from sort of hospice world, NHS world, and then over to sort of the charity arm, if you like, the that side of it, looking at how we can improve things through, it's fair to say, innovation is my world. I like that sort of side of it.
Yeah.
So, lack of a better example, Anglian Community Trust invested in a local organisation that focused on teenagers that struggled at school.
Okay.
The way they did that was through film, drama, if you like, but also the production side of it, the music, um, really looking at the theatrical side of things with masses of volunteers. Actually had people that had acted before, so I was going to say proper actors, a director who was kind of running it. That buzz and everything around it, we invested at the end of it, not a massive amount, but to them it meant the world. And it was actually due to the innovation they had that pushed it forward. So for me, the key to that wasn't that necessarily it was a good idea. The key is actually that you've got somebody who's got the passion and the heart to take that forward.
Yeah.
So in that charity world, it's all about, are you positive enough? Are you going to drive it forward? Can you carry it? Yes, we're going to give you some money, but actually you'd be doing it if we didn't. We're just going to make it so you can do even more, so you can push forward. You can do a particular project you want to do. And that to me is the key. It's never, are you, have you got tons of knowledge? Knowledge can be learnt later on. Do you have the passion to do it? Do you believe in what you're doing? Do you think that actually at the end of it you'll achieve something? I think that's a lot more important than anything else. So yeah, I'm always like this. Putting my fingers in lots of fires, doing various different things. Sometimes it irritates people, um, because you tread on people's toes, but I think sometimes it needs to happen to just get things
Yeah.
pushed forward.
And I think in any workplace you need a variety of different styles and different approaches, don't you? If you've got if everyone's the same and no one's asking questions and everyone's staying in the lane and everyone's just getting on with the job, they'll get that bit of the job done well, but nothing will ever change. There'll never be any momentum behind it.
Exactly.
So actually diversity is a word that's used quite a lot, and people think it's about colour of skin or religion or gender, but actually quite a lot of diversity is around diversity of thought and bringing that diversity of thought into working practices as well.
Yeah, and that is spot on, really, because a lot of the people that are on one of the projects we did invest in, a lot of them are neurodiverse teenagers.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, you're kind of almost, it's that old adage, square peg, round hole. You're kind of putting them into a situation that they're never going to fit into, and expecting the same outcome. And you're not going to have that. Every person is different. Everybody's brain is different. Everybody works differently. Everybody's had different experiences from a childlike way on. You can't expect that same things happen. So when you get a mass of people into a business, there's no good sort of trying to get them all to do exactly the same thing, at any one time. You're better off having a much more open approach and then gradually seeing actually who fits where, who does what. There'll be that person that will guarantee will be there at 9 o'clock every morning, guaranteed, and will sign off and be going home at 5 o'clock every day. And there's nothing wrong with that. But
Yeah.
you'll have somebody else who won't switch off very much because they love it so much. You'll have somebody else, that constantly has innovation, doesn't stop, always has ideas, always wants to do things, wants to do more. It's almost taking those people and feeding it. Because it's no good taking a thing saying, I want to give everybody a training course to do on project management, and you decide everybody's going to do it. The trouble is, you've got some people there that have no interest in managing
Yeah.
projects, or anything like that. So actually, you may go, actually, I just want them to understand the terminology of projects. That's all they need. Somebody else, I'll encourage them, sending them training courses, and in a few years they'll be a project manager, running their own projects, going forward with it. I think too many times, when, especially when organisations grow very big, it's all about the standardisation, and they forget actually everybody's human and we're
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Standardisation's good, but you also need to be flexible enough to look after the people that are there. So
Yeah. Of course you do. And can you think of almost a challenging moment that's taught you a lesson and you now apply that in how you work either with people or how you work on a day-to-day basis?
oh, blimey, which one to pick? No, I think actually a lot of what you do has to be made up of challenging moments.
Yeah.
Because if you're not having any challenges, you've got to wonder, am I doing something wrong? It's that old thing, if you've never failed, then you've obviously never tried. Because I can, I always have the thing as well that I would rather do something and then say sorry later,
Yeah.
if something needs to be done. If you're confident that something needs to happen and that person doesn't agree later on, say, oh, well, I do apologise. But the point is, it had to be done. So I think I had a particular thing happen to me many years ago where actually I think, and this is going to sound like a really odd one, but I was actually part of a disciplinary
Okay.
because it was part of a big team. All of us were put under a disciplinary and we were all investigated for basically various accusations and bullying and everything in the NHS. And it went on for a good 6 months of an investigation. By the end of this, you can imagine what you felt like.
Yeah.
Your nerves were shot. um, you felt, but what I actually got out of it was that by the end of it, I'd almost had a certain amount of epiphany, which actually is, if I keep my professionalism and I keep myself to who I am, um, then they can't complain about anything I'm doing. And in truth, it was found I hadn't done anything wrong, so that was fine. But in that final meeting, I sat there, listened, said thank you very much, and then left. And
Yeah.
actually, what I got from that was that I grew as a person because I thought at the end of it, I've done the right thing. I was told that I hadn't done anything wrong, but actually that I grew because I was able to just say thank you to people that I viewed actually put me through hell. But it was that thing of more than anything. It was me being able to say thank you and walking out was for me, not for them.
Yeah.
It meant then I started to understand a different view, I suppose, to say you don't know, one, you don't know what somebody else is going through, but two, you don't know, even though some of these things sound horrible, like the word disciplinary, horrible word. I just don't like the sound of it at all. But actually, the process behind it is to figure out what has happened and why. But the people going through it, it's hell. It's
Yeah.
horrible. I didn't want to be the person that walked in and got angry. I didn't want to be the person that went in and said, you've broken me. I got this real bee in my bonnet that I just wanted to come out of there feeling stronger than I went in. And I think I did. I think it's fair to say I think I did. And I definitely learned a lesson from it. And I learned a lesson. The other lesson I learned from the same thing was that sometimes there are people, and you've probably heard it before, toxic culture, but
Yeah.
there are people, it doesn't have to be a whole culture. Toxic side of things can be a person, but it manages to make the whole thing feel awful.
Yeah.
So I sort of learned that you have to sometimes just take a step back and look at, you know, is is this good for me? Is this something I want to be in the middle of? And take a step back from it and go, hang on a minute, I can see what's happening here. I'm not gonna do the same as what the person's doing or what's going on. I'm just gonna step back. And it's something at the time I didn't know to do
Yeah.
because I was quite early in my career, but it was something that then I learned and I'm glad I did because now the amount of people I've now advised when I've had to do investigations on other things and things like that, where I've said to them, just be open, honest, don't worry about it. It's just we're looking at something, it's an investigation, we'll do it really quickly, it's not going to be drawn out. it taught me an awful lot about what other people go through. And I think until you've been through it, it's really difficult to see how much what you just feel like you're going through hell, and it
Yeah.
takes a toll on you. Um,
Yeah.
Definitely taught me a lot about what people go through during those things. So yeah, that was a
Yeah.
biggie.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think, toxicity and the toxic culture, people, it spreads really quickly. You can see it almost as like a poisonous gas, can't you? It might just come from one person or a small group of people, but you can see it radiating out, and the impact it has on the team directly, but on the organisation as a whole, can be absolutely devastating. And you do need individuals to be able to take a step back and say, no, these are my personal values, these are my professional values, and I'm not going to go against those for anyone. And if that puts me on the wrong side, then that's absolutely fine. But I'm staying true to my own values. But it takes a lot of experience and almost professional confidence to be able to get to
Yeah,
that point.
yeah. That's the thing at the time. That's what I didn't have. So at the time, I was actually working as somebody who trained on systems, and
Yeah,
put me in a room full of people to train on a system, and I was massively confident, would work with them. Didn't matter what we were doing, I was fine. IT, not a problem. You got a problem with your laptop while I'm here? Solve that for you, not an issue. And then it was like, you've got to deal with this, and this is something very human, but something that you never thought you'd have to deal with. It's kind of that, to every day you think to yourself, you don't think to yourself you're going to come to work and somehow somebody there is going to make your life hell. You don't
yeah,
even predict that's going to happen, and nobody should have to put up with that element. But sometimes it's difficult because, and I'm not a psychologist, so please don't quote me on this. But I think some people, they do get something out of being very much in control and being very much that they can do certain things, and they know that some things will set you off, they will upset you, they'll do these things, and they very easily flick to the other side, which is, I feel I'm being bullied and I feel I'm
yeah,
being put in this way. So they can very quickly go back to over being the victim. And the thing that you always got to keep in your mind every single way through that is, are you keeping your personal professionalism, and how do you feel? And if the organisation isn't going to do something about it, and you've reported that this is what's going on, you actually have to think really hard. Do you want to be there?
yeah,
Because one, the organisation has a responsibility to support you, but also you have a responsibility to yourself and your own mental health. For me, I didn't have that confidence in me at the time. I kind of took the whole thing on the chin, kept my professionalism, and then I was still in the NHS for another 12 years.
yeah,
So you can see from that, it was kind of, I took it on the chin and I stuck with it. It was kind of almost like, yeah, hit me again. But it was a strange thing that it was almost like an acceptable way to be treated for 6 months.
yeah,
Of And I think if I had the same knowledge now to back then, it would have been very different. Um, it would have been, I'd have had an expectation on the organisation to be protecting me, as an individual as well. So I'm not just there to be a robot, I am human.
yeah,
And I think that's what I've learned, that when you go to work, you can still be a human being, which
yeah,
sometimes we've forgotten, I think, a lot of the time. So yeah, it taught me a lot, but I definitely then have passed that knowledge on as much as possible to other people that always think of your own family, your own mental health, your own well-being. You can't do your job if your head's not in the right place. So it's just not worth losing yourself over.
yeah.
So
No,
I
no.
feel like I've gone into
Life's
one of those
really short.
posters now, that you have on the wall, tells you your dream and thing.
Live,
There's
love, laugh.
that's it. I didn't mean to go into that, but that's what it's a bit like. Make sure you focus on yourself a lot as well. And I've always said that when you leave a place of work, and this is definitely something I've learned over the years, is when you leave a place of work, you will be missed, as a person by the people at your work. The
Yeah.
organisation doesn't care.
No. No,
That's
you
how
can
I
just
look at
be
it. The
replaced.
people,
And people
yeah,
forget
the
that, don't
people,
they? They forget how
that's
easily
exactly it.
replaceable they are.
The amount of people that just before Christmas went to a lovely evening out with people. Some of them I used to work for me. Some people I used to work with. We went out for a lovely evening, and I saw them all, and they really missed me, and they start really, I really wish you were still working with us, all things like that, which is really nice. I don't get that from where I used to work, the actual company, because I
Yeah.
wouldn't. I didn't even get a leaving interview from there. But the
Yeah.
point is, so it's that thing of you'll make an impact on a person, you won't make it on the actual business itself. The business itself is what it is. It's not, sounds weird, but it's not real technically.
No.
All it really is it's a company, it's a logo, it's they do a particular thing. The people in it is what really makes that culture and makes it what it is, and you want to work there. So,
Yeah.
humans are the important bit of it.
Yeah. I completely agree. Are there any other life skills that you think, I mean, being nice, holding on to your own personal and professional values, being almost respecting yourself, but are there any life skills that you actually think are undervalued in business that you actually hold dear and feel they've contributed to your own success, career
I think
success?
something again that I mentioned earlier is overlooked a lot is the human element from
Yeah.
people. You can honestly say there's not a single person in any business that has had the same upbringing, the same background, the same lessons, the same experiences, and everything that you get through all of that. And what I've kind of learned myself over all of that is you will have one person that might be working in finance and they've worked in finance for 20 years that has a special interest that they've always had in artwork or in something else that they're doing. Nobody ever goes, I'm just going to talk to finance about this creative bit of work we've got to do, marketing. It's just not spoken. It's the unspoken thing. It's like almost a secret. It's like, no, because you've got that job role, that means you're not allowed to do anything else.
Yeah.
It's a really odd thing. And I've always put it down to, and yeah, if in the good old days, not that I was there, but in the good old days, you had a family company, everybody was doing everything, and that's what you did. You had a tiny company made of 5 people, you didn't have a choice to go, oh, not doing that. That's not my job description. We've become so focused on job descriptions and people being a cog in a giant wheel that all of a sudden we've gone, you know, they've forgotten that we're not ants. We don't just run by the pheromones in the air. We're actually run by thoughts, feelings, who we are. If you're sitting at a desk and it is just one cubicle in a pod, and you come in and you read a script off of the screen and you're an algorithm basically, you do get to a point where you think, do you actually want a human that's
Yeah.
working there? So it's an odd thing, but my lesson from the whole thing was everybody's different. Offices should not look like the 1970s blocks of desks. You come in, you sit at that, you work from this time to this time. You do no. We're made to live in the open. We're made to have the green and the good mental health. We're made to be looked after. We're made to ask for help. All these things are quite normal things for a human. I've stopped believing in that, if you like, that culture that used to be bred, which was you come to work, you work these hours. If you don't work these hours, you've not done your job. If you come in and you're not at that desk, you're not working. If it's to me that is all toxic culture. That is
Yeah.
all things that make sure they breed out of a normal everyday person, like me and you. They're trying to almost take out all of that and say you're just an algorithm. You're here to be a cog. And it's the weirdest thing when you think that some of the worst people probably for doing it are the likes of healthcare.
Yeah.
Your the size of the NHS, it's massive, plus the partners. If you like, the hospice is as a partner of that. You've got social care, you've got all these things. And yet a lot of the time people will feel like a cog in this machine. Um, and that's not actually the case. You're still a human being at the end of it. The management, the people, the seniors might feel much better that you're a cog. because then they can just go, yep, that needs doing, that needs doing. We need to get rid of those 5 cogs over there, but we can move that cog over here. They'll feel great, but your staff won't. And for me, it needs to the thinking needs to change an awful lot. If I've My thinking all the time was that if I've got a member of staff and they're doing their job, I wasn't bothered by the hours they did. Most of the time, it was purely me going, "You're not doing too many hours, are you?" Um, because you're employing somebody for their brain, not for the hours they sit somewhere. A little bit different, fair enough, if you're opening a shop. But you're still, even then, employing somebody for their knowledge. You're not employing them to just sit there and act like a robot. I used to think that when you went in, you had to do certain things. You had to be somewhere at a certain time, leave at a certain time, do these certain things, act in a certain way, and be a certain thing, almost copying what had come before me almost. And then it got to a point where I went, actually, that's not how life is. It's then the tie went out the window because I hated wearing ties, because I thought, why am I wearing a tie every day? Because it was an odd thing. It was that weird thing again that, it's what I always call the suit, jacket, and blouse comparison. So it's a really weird thing. You'll go into a meeting and you'll be sitting there. Half will be women and half will be men. Every single man in the meeting will have a suit and tie on. And the women will have various things. So you'll have a dress, blouse, skirt, trousers, suit, might be all different. The men, suits and ties. Why? Why is that the commonality? And the commonality is because for years men were dominant in business, and there's still a thing that you can't be businesslike unless you wear a suit and tie. It's so stupid.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. And the first time I realised it was when I turned up in my tie and went to a big meeting, had lots of people from the NHS all sitting around this table, and I just sat there and went, why are all the men wearing these uncomfortable clothes with these weird shoes and everything else? And I said, they don't have any more knowledge than anybody else in the room. And yet when they got up, I was thinking, oh, I better listen. And actually that's not the case. People dress differently, act differently, have different hairstyles and everything. You should judge them on knowledge. You should judge them on who they are, not on what they're wearing. So I instantly went down the route of, actually, you don't need that tie to be on. What are you comfortable in? What are you most comfortable in? If your shoes hurt your feet an awful lot, change what you're wearing. It doesn't make a blind bit of difference what you're wearing. If the people have an issue with the fact that you've come in and actually you've decided to wear a black pair of trainers, okay, they can have that issue. But actually, does it change the amount of knowledge I have? Well, for me, no, it doesn't. So it really changed the way I look at things. And I think it would help a lot of people, I think, sometimes in just looking at themselves, and
Yeah.
saying, actually, how much it is my own perception that I'm putting on people. And if anything now, if somebody comes in a suit, they have to do a lot more work for me, because I instantly go down the route of thinking salespeople. And I'm always thinking, oh, okay, what are they going to try and sell us? What are they going to be doing? Is there going to be pressure sales here? And I kind of lose that element of respect until they've earned it. Other people
Yeah.
come in, I go, oh, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
It's the
It's almost like, what are you hiding? If you have to put on this big show, what are you
yeah,
hiding? If I go somewhere, I'll say to people, when I sold and I worked in software for a really long time. And I always used to say, you ask me whatever you want. If you want to press a button, we'll press a button. If you want to talk about something else, well, that's fine, because I knew that I had a confidence in the knowledge that I could just handle whatever was thrown at me. If someone comes in, suit, jacket, tie, shiny shoes, very scripted performance, very rigid in their approach, my immediate response is, why? Why are you acting
yeah.
like that?
And it does, because if your plumber turned up in a suit, you'd query it.
Yeah.
And it's weird. If for example, we have you have somebody come out, an electrician, what you expect them to be wearing is some trousers that actually have all the pockets in it, because they have to carry lots of stuff in them and do
Yeah.
various things. You wouldn't expect them to come in a suit. So you're coming into an office, you're going to be at a desk and talking to people. Why is the best thing to wear that horrible jacket that doesn't do much for the cold, the tie that's constantly around your neck like this all the time? why is all of that considered? And it's, again, to me, it's a very old-fashioned kind of way of looking at the formality of business. For me, when I went to meet years ago a website development company, I was looking forward to it because I wanted to show where I was working at the time how different it would be. And of course, we walked in, and the very first thing you noticed was there wasn't a suit in the entire building. Everybody was smart, but it wasn't that everybody was strict. There were jeans in the building. Now that was a big thing. NHS, no
Yeah.
jeans. But you walk into something and there's somebody wearing jeans, then to me, I went, this is a proper working group. You don't want to be at a desk all day wearing the stuff you're putting on. It just doesn't make any sense. So we again found, with looking at things like that and looking at whether it's the clothes, whether it's just the general way that they present things and things like that, were very, very different. The same as, this is a pet hate of mine. People come to do a presentation and it's got a white background. I hate white backgrounds on presentations. It's the worst thing ever. It makes you feel tired looking at them, and it's the weirdest thing. There are other colours, so I always find I don't present anything on a white background, and people always ask me, "Oh, you've not done a white background," and it's a weird thing. Why does it have to be white? What is the obsession? And I think it's the same thing. It's because that's what's expected. So always do what's expected. Well, actually throw that out the window, and go with along the lines of actually what kind of needs to be done just to achieve what you need to achieve. If we're working from home, there's not one of us that's going to put on a shirt and tie
Yeah.
to sit here to work from home. It's very, very comfortable, and I get tons achieved when I'm at home. So why, when you go into the office, all right, fair enough, you're not going to go in your slippers. But the point is, when you go into an office, why is it so different? Because surely you're achieving the same outcome from
Yeah.
doing it. So I think there is, for me, I've learned a lot from seeing it and watching people a lot. But I think there's still a lot to be learned from businesses to thinking more along the lines of, you don't have to always follow the same restrictive, what you think people want to see. Because actually people might not want to see that. And there's nothing wrong with actually asking your customers, what do you expect it to look like? Does it bother you how we're dressed? It's such a silly thing, but nobody ever asks the question, and yet they think they know what their customers want. What
Yeah.
the customers, they know what the customers say. I personally would much rather people be in relaxed clothes when I meet them. I don't think really you can know somebody from them wearing a standard set of a suit to sell you a car. Doesn't make you
No,
trust them.
not at all.
Um,
Not at all.
so yeah, so I've definitely, that over the years I've learned a lot. I wish I'd have learned it a very long time ago.
Yeah.
So I felt less intimidated when I went in a room and everybody was wearing suits.
Yeah.
It felt very intimidating. But that was maybe part of the idea of it.
Yeah. And um I think it's one of those things, again, it's what we talked about earlier, isn't it? It's the confidence that comes through experience. You learn to trust your own gut and to trust your own judgment. And in doing so, you find your own way and become less intimidated by people who potentially haven't got to that point yet. And I think that's a really valuable lesson in whatever career you're in, or you're hoping to be in. Actually trusting yourself will take you a long way.
Your gut instinct is a massive thing. If you go, I remember going to an interview once and I walked in, and as soon as I met the receptionist, I went, I don't want to work here.
Yeah.
Wasn't the receptionist's fault necessarily, don't get me wrong, but it was more the feeling, the way that it was, that it was, I just went, just doesn't feel right,
Yeah.
you know. So as soon as I went into the interview, I'd already decided I didn't really want the job. So it was kind of completely put off. And I think that's a similar part of it. It is okay to not feel comfortable. It is
Yeah.
okay to think that, actually it is, if you like, it is okay to be intimidated by
Yeah.
things. And if you don't want to work in that sort of environment where you're constantly feeling intimidated by, these people that like to feel in power and in their suits and must do things in certain ways, don't work for them.
Yeah.
That's the only way things will change.
Yeah. Perfect. Right. I can't think of a better place to stop, so I'm going to launch into the conclusion.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Strings to Your Bow. It's been a pleasure learning from Michael and exploring how his personal experiences and superpowers have shaped his journey and success. If you've enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe to Strings to Your Bow on YouTube. Be sure to like, comment and share with anyone who might find inspiration in these stories. I'll see you next time as we continue to uncover the unique strings that make up the bows of incredible individuals. Until then, take care and keep adding new strings to your bow.